And I don't ever talk to them. No, they'll actually, I don't know if there's not much money or not. Yeah, I just like how to say, but
Isabella, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
I saw you come on mute. Is your mic working? I'm not hearing you here.
Yeah, it is.
Okay,
working.
I can hear you now. Thank you. I just want to do a quick check.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, and then all we gotta do is just make sure, like, she's in external. Michael should be. Just hit X there because you don't need to see the participants coming up. Yep. Okay.
So that should be it.
That should be it. And all their mics are already on, so we'll just have to deal with that.
One minute. Good afternoon. I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome you all to the school board meeting this Tuesday, May 17th, 2022. This public is encouraged and welcome to address the school board at the hearing of citizens. Our assistant, Kathy Tompkins, in the green dress to my left, will have accepted cards for speaking both on the agenda items and general items. When the board begins meeting, which we already have started, there will be no more cards accepted, and we look forward to hearing from you at the appropriate time. Now I'd like to announce the flag salute under the direction of the Northport High School NJ ROTC under the direction of retired USN Lieutenant Commander D. Barnes. Our student representative, Sabrina Smith, will lead us in the pledge. Please stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated. And everyone, have a seat so that you can listen to a live performance now featuring the Heron Creek Middle School String Ensemble. These children play beautifully. Heron Creek is known to have a bravo, wonderful music program for many years, and I've been fortunate enough to be involved in the school in the past. The teacher, Miss Sarah Cooper, is with us today, and they're going to play for us. I might mention the students are Hannah Aguilar, Jacqueline Baker, Eric Burtis Sample, Kalan Daughtry, Brandon Dean, Kendra Jacoman, Eleanor Jewell, Kaylin Justice, Aiden Marshall, Maya O'Donnell, Noah Schultz, Marissa Service, Joshua Shepard, and Gabriel Osaro Silva. Wonderful job, everyone. While you all are moving out, I'd like to introduce your wonderful principal, Christine Lawrence, who's sitting in the back of the room. Christine. Wonderful. We're so happy to have had these wonderful musicians here today. I'd also like to introduce a few other people in the audience today. We have Jill Luke, Jill Wave, and Alice White. Two of our city commissioners here in Northport, thank you for being here. And we have our wonderful city manager, Jerome Fletcher, who's in the back of the room. Jerome, would you please stand up? The superintendent will mention you again later. And I also want to thank some other participants that are not here today. I want to thank Mel Thomas of the Northport EDC, who is not working right at the moment. But Mel was instrumental in helping us with our referendum back in March and getting that passed, along with Wharton Smith Construction, who was just really, really helpful in executing that as well. So I want to say thank you to both of those wonderful individuals. And now to our student representative, Sabrina Schmidt. Sabrina is a junior at Northport High School. I keep looking to the wrong side because I'm accustomed to our student rep sitting on to my left. Sabrina, could you please tell us a little bit about yourself and what your aspirations are after high school?
Yes, so I just want to first off say thank you so much for having me here. I really appreciate this opportunity. But like she said, I am a Northport High School junior, and I really am interested in photography and filmmaking. So I am trying to figure out whether I want to do that as a career path later in life. I do want to go to college though. And then just a little bit about me, like currently, I am the upcoming student body president at Northport High School. I'm also the upcoming National Honor Society president. And I have served in many leadership positions over the past 3 years, which have really helped me just gain an understanding of how to be a leader. And then just another little fact, I work at Chick-fil-A. But yeah, that's just a little bit about me.
Well, I think that's a lot. But, you know, we're looking at you achieving a lot of things, and I think you'll probably be sought after by a number of colleges for anyone who has that kind of academic career path going forward. And the fact that, you know, you're also the president of the senior class, I think that speaks volumes for you. So thank you for being here. And could you tell us a little bit about your involvement with the Civility Squad character trait for May and how it's affected you in your life?
All right, so I'm going to first say it just so everybody knows. It is keep your cool, take a pause, take a breath, wait till there's no anger left. So I want to share a little experience I had this past year. So I was faced with a challenge, and since my freshman year, I've been involved within district-wide student government. So this past year, I was the secretary for the district, and I was planning on running for president to be the District 4 president. But there were some circumstances that led to me not having that opportunity. And I was informed at a leadership rally beforehand that I was not going to be able to do this. And I was promised this since my freshman year. So obviously, I felt betrayed at first, and I was angry, like the Civility Squad character trait is. I was pretty angry, and I just didn't know what to do. But after taking a second to look back and see what was going on, it really allowed me to know that it just is going to give me a bigger opportunity to make a change at my school. So now I can focus more on student government at my school and making the environment a better place and helping with community service in Northport with National Honor Society. And that's all my goal really is. It's just to help make a change and make a difference in our school. So yeah, it was a little angering, but once you take a breath, I promise you things are going to be okay in the end.
Well, I want to thank you for that example because I think that makes it very, very clear. Maybe we need to rephrase what we ask in these questions, but I think that was really very, very informative. And I think you're the right person for the job next year. So we're going to be looking at all the things you accomplish, and I'm sure that colleges will be lined up. So, you know, look at many, because you're going to have many opportunities. We did give Sabrina a certificate of appreciation, and we thank you so much for being here today, and we thank Northport for having us as well. So thank you all. And next up is our special presentations, which are always really, really important to me. And the first presentation today is to highlight the Northport High School student athletes. Would James Slayton, District Athletic Director, please approach the podium?
Great to be here in Northport. This has changed a lot over the years. This is amazing. It's beautiful. I was actually the first group that opened up Northport High School back in 2001, so pretty amazing to be here. Chance to celebrate some great students, some great athletes, student athletes as well, great choir. That was amazing. How good was that? I mean, the orchestra. That was pretty good. I actually played the cello in middle school. Didn't sound like that.
I can't believe that.
Wanted to play the bass, couldn't get it in the school bus. So anyway, we'll move on. But I want to thank Dr. Asplin, school board, for giving us a chance to recognize our student athletes here at Northport High School. We're going to get a chance to recognize academic state championship volleyball team, and then some individual champions in weightlifting and in wrestling. These fine Northport athletes, we'll see here in a minute, exemplify everything we look for, which is great students, great athletes, and great young people. I want to thank Northport High School Principal Shannon Fusco, Athletic Director Tony Miller, and Assistant Principal Julie King for all their support and efforts to make Northport High athletics great. And at this time, would you welcome Northport High School Athletic Director Tony Miller.
School board, Dr. Asplin, thank you for having us here. This is always a special moment for us to celebrate the accomplishments from our student athletes. Today we're going to recognize, I have to go off my phone because I left my notes on my desk, but our three individual state champions. Coach Egloff, who is the head coach of the girls weightlifting team, was able to coach along with myself, Shantae Reed and Aubrey Jarvis. You guys want to come up? Shantae, this year at the state weightlifting meet was the first time that they incorporated the snatch into the weightlifting event, and Shantae won the snatch at 155 pounds, and then Aubrey, actually, she won the snatch and the traditional, which is bench press and clean and jerk. She was able to snatch 140 pounds. She bench pressed 195 and clean and jerked 185 pounds. These girls are also the current school record holders in most of their lifts. Along with that, both are district and regional champions, and Shantae also finished 5th in the traditional category. So two of our girl weightlifters. So every... Can I get a picture again, please? You want to get your message? And then also like to introduce Dominic Joyce. Dominic Joyce. He wrestled the 182-pound weight class. He finished it by points. He is also a district and regional champion. The best thing about this group is Dominic and Aubrey are both juniors, so we should have them back again next year. Coach Hill, also in attendance, is the head wrestling coach. And this is actually the first time that we get to do this, is present them with their state championship rings because they just came in the mail. So oh. This year's individual state champions.
Everybody in the back, please come center so we can get it.
All right. And our second presentation that we have today is for our varsity volleyball team. They were the 7A academic team champions with a combined GPA of 3.804. The amazing part is most of these girls are in upper level classes also. So when it comes to monitoring their grades, nothing to worry about. And our brand new volleyball coach here, head coach Jenica Thomas is here, so she's not going to have anything to worry about. But members of this team are senior Andrea Stelwag. Go ahead and come up when I call your name. Senior Haley Rhodes. Senior Brooke Matthews. And all these girls that we're calling, these seniors, all have to go to graduation tonight, so it's a special day for them. Sophomore Abby Backstrom. Junior Ashante Quezada Baez. Sophomore Nevaeh Pryor. Junior Peyton Mall. Junior Mila Snyder. Sophomore Ava Jade Brochart. Sophomore Tatiana Harker Barnes. Senior Julia Sanchez. Freshman Kiera Hunley. Sophomore Ansley Ryan.
Congratulations, ladies.
Turn sideways.
Let everyone get a chance to move out, and those of you that would like could move down front if you'd like to. Sit on the front row, those of you in the back. Our second presentation is a really wonderful presentation to me because it highlights the NASA Astronaut Memorial Foundation Mission 1 partnership. Would Dr. Sarah Burkett please approach the podium?
Good afternoon, school board members, Superintendent Dr. Esplin, student representative that just exited. Oh, my bad. Can you hear me now? teacher voice, right? So my name is Dr. Sarah Burkett. I'm the high school science program specialist for Sarasota County Schools. And in the last week of April, we had the privilege of escorting school board chair, Ms. Jane Goodwin, and along with the K-12 science program specialist to NASA under the direction of Mr. Matt Susan, who will be up shortly, to discuss Mission 1, which is a STEAM initiative with Kennedy Space Center. And just a little bit of background about Mission 1 is it's really a community partnership that seeks to align community resources with NASA resources and their astronauts, and really bring to light 21st century skills within our classrooms with our students and have that connection to really bridge that foundational gap and provide them with opportunities to solve real world problems. So with us today is Mr. Matt Susan of the Brevard School Board. And without further ado.
Thank you, guys. So he's trying to bring and put, I don't know where this camera's at. Oh, you want me to go down there? There you go. Better to look at that. So funny story, and thank you, Ms. Jane, for putting this together, giving us an opportunity to talk about how great your school board is, and along with what they did recently, and also good to see you, Bridget. I'm a school board member in Brevard County, which is where Kennedy Space Center is at. I run a lot into the STEM and a lot into the innovation portions. And so what I did was, because I am leaving in 2 years from the school board, I wanted to do something that I could do for the rest of my life. So I put together what is known as the Mark III Mission 1. And what it does is it connects all of the school districts around the state of Florida through a multitude of opportunities with Kennedy Space Center. I wanted to tell you guys a funny little story. This isn't the first time at Kennedy Space Center, was not the first time I saw Sarah. This is a really weird roundabout is that Sarah actually used to come and visit right in my own county, and we've been friends for 2 years. And then all of a sudden she showed up at the STEM event over here, and I was like, are you kidding me? So there's a kind of a weird connection between you guys. But I will tell you this. I'm really excited to be a part of it. How do I switch it over to the thing? The NASA director is going to has another meeting at 3:30, so I might let her go first. Can we put Isabel on real quick? Let her speak? Yeah. It's going to be a little bit off. So coming in from Kennedy Space Center is going to be Isabel. She runs the NASA and Kennedy Space Center initiative, and wanted to, if she's in there, there she is right there. All right, Isabel, you got the floor. Go ahead.
Hi, can you all see me and hear me okay?
Yep, we're good.
Hello? Great.
Good to go.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. My name is Isabel Kennedy. I'm the Director of Education at the Astronauts Memorial Foundation here at Kennedy Space Center. I wanted to say thank you to Matt for having me here and speak to you all. We have a lot of great initiatives here at Kennedy, and I want to make sure that Sarasota County, all your teachers, your parents, your students are aware of some of the opportunities we have here, so we can get you all out to Kennedy Space Center for some of our activities. One of them is the exploration station that we run, meaning the Astronauts Memorial Foundation runs with NASA, and it is a free access classroom at the Center for Space Education, and it's totally free of charge, and the students who come here with their chaperones and their teachers are able to work with a NASA educator, I'm one of them, and have access to the Kennedy Space Center Visitors Complex. So I'm sure Matt will distribute my information, and you can feel free to reach out to me about that, but I want to make sure that all of your students and teachers out there know that that exists, and we can get you out here, because we're not in your backyard, but we're very close. Another thing that we wanted to do is make sure that we create a pipeline for all Floridian students to have access to careers and internship opportunities here at the spaceport, whether that's with NASA or Lockheed Martin or Jacobs or, Blue Origin. We have a ton of opportunity out here. And so Matt will speak to a few of the things that we're working on together with Mission 1. And making sure that your students, particularly high school, going into university students, are aware that they have opportunity out here and they can absolutely work here at the spaceport.
All right. Thank you, Isabel.
So, yeah.
We appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone.
She was in the middle of the presentation, but she had to go at 3:30, so she had to jump off. Thank you, Isabel. this. Now I'll give you an overview of the whole presentation. All right. So there's 4 parts of this, and we'll get into those in just a second. We have leaders in education. Many of you guys know Superintendent Bill, head of the superintendents for the state of Florida, Bill Montford. Bill Montford has endorsed and is now a part of the team. Michelle White from the Florida Association of School Administrators has signed on. Andrea Messina from the Florida Association of School Boards has signed on. And then myself, along with a lot of the other leaders of associations inside the state of Florida. The next part is we have Winston Scott, who has flagged multiple flights across space through the shuttle. We have Joseph Akaba, who currently is running all of NASA's missions for launch in Star City, Russia, so you can imagine what that's like right now. He is in the middle of launching the final one and then coming over as we get ready to launch from our space center. And many more of the astronauts that will be working with you. The government partners that we have, Kennedy Space Center, the Astronauts Memorial Foundation, Kennedy Space Center Visitors Complex, 45th Space Wing, Space Force, U.S. Naval Research, Air Force Reaper Project, and a bunch of others that we couldn't put on here. Private space partners are Northrop Grumman, Boeing, SpaceX, Blue Origins, Rockwell Collins, L3 Harris, you heard Jacobs. All of them have decided to join on with this to create a pipeline for all schools. Many times when you guys are going into places, they say, hey, we're going to have a great STEM day. And what they do is they hold they put a couple of people up on a stage and they talk about it and then nothing ever comes. What we wanted to do is recreate a pathline and pipeway for grants, for jobs, for everything else. So let me explain it. Mission 1, which is is going to be in-person and virtual tours. You're going to be able to take students from Sarasota schools, go to Kennedy Space Center, 10 of them, and they're going to pipe back to over 400 boys and girls clubs and over 300 school districts throughout the state of Florida and the Southeast. This is going to be done virtually on a platform that the company that I work for paid for. So we're able to go through and have kids experience certain things like this. Many of you don't know, but right now they took volcanic ash from Hawaii because it's the only sediment on the earth that matches Mars, put it in a huge warehouse, and they're trying to build buildings with 3D printers. Because prior to us actually getting to Mars, we have to send robots to build the cities. So right now, those robots are in there. Those would be one of the things that the students could go see. So the other thing that we do is there's a ton of other stuff. We're going to open up Kennedy Space Center for the students to be able to view virtually and certain select ones to do in person. That will be a tour with a different astronaut every time. The other one that I love, which is probably more fun, is launch day reporting. So we're going to allow school districts to come. We've actually got an entire bleacher seat section where all of NASA, when you guys watch a launch and those guys are out there and they're like, this is our students, your students, will be sitting right there next to the reporters talking about this is the rocket, the SpaceX rocket, this is the Dragon rocket, this is how much fuel it is, this is how the engine's going to run, these are the satellites that are in there. The satellites are going up to go over the top of one of the European countries to give them Wi-Fi. They're going to explain the whole thing, and then they're going to get to launch it, and then they're going to get to do some other stuff that we got activities over there. So we literally are launching right now a rocket at least every week. And many of the people over here may hear it, see it sometimes. I see it from Miami when I'm doing business down there. You can see the rocket take off. You might on a clear day from a high point be able to see it from here. But we're going to end up getting to 2 launches a week. And they're sending up stuff. We have the military sends them up in the middle of the night. Then you have all of the satellite companies sending them up. And we want to give the kids the opportunity to be a part of that. So there will be Sarasota schools, there will be Martin County schools, all of them will be going out there. The other thing that I wanted to do, 4 years ago, my school district put together what's known as the Innovation Games. I'd like to open that up for anybody that would like to challenge. So you're talking about at Kennedy Space Center's Visitors Complex, we'll be hosting drone races to run through all of the different components that are there. If you've ever seen the Rocket Garden, it's a heck of a place to run a bunch of drones, and it gets kids out there, right? Then we're going to be doing a lot of other stuff. The Office of Naval Research does something called Sea Perch. I'm probably aware it's inside your school district. We're going to have a regional competition there for that too. We kind of want to create the STEM Geek Games. We did it in Brevard. It's a huge component, but it's only for Brevard students. And I wanted to open it up, so Kennedy Space Center allowed us to do that. So participating school districts will be able to come and compete. Now, that's one component, which is Mission 1. The next one is KSC, Kennedy Space Center Space Careers. This is all going to be on June 16th, talked about how we're going to do it, but we would love to have your students come to Kennedy Space Center at a younger age to see what's available, and then at a later age do internships and jobs. Many people don't understand that every time they talk about going to space, everybody talks about what? Astronauts, engineers. Well, they're going to need plumbers, pipe fitters, and freaking electricians too. And so all of those components and what they are the careers of tomorrow we need. We need trades in Mars. And when I keep saying Mars, just so everybody knows, they are launching humans to Mars in the 2030s, near the end of 2030. They haven't hit the date yet. So kids that are literally in elementary school right now may be graduating and watching rockets go to Mars. That's how fast we're going to be doing this. So Kennedy Space Center is ramping it up, and that's why all the partners are willing to go. The other thing, we just did a test run about a month ago. We brought students in, and we literally brought all of the aviation partners that you saw. They sat there, kids brought their resumes, and they literally were hired on the spot at 18 years old to work at Kennedy Space Center. So some great opportunities, some great things for the kids. So that's the careers. The other piece is that what she was talking about, which is the Kennedy Space Center and Memorial Foundation, we wanted to give tours, launch day reporting, innovation games. But what she was speaking to is that Sarasota Schools was given the opportunity just now to go to Kennedy Space Center for free and utilize all of their STEM classrooms for free. And that's all the way from kindergarten all the way to 12th grade, but you usually only see kindergarten through 5th in there. And she oversees that for both NASA and the Kennedy Space Center Astronaut Memorial Foundation. So that component is number 4, and then or 3, and then the 4th component is grant collaboration. So twice a year, we're going to sit down with the different school districts, and if you can write a federal grant with NASA's name and say you're collaborating, then we want to give you that opportunity. And if you don't want to, that's not a big deal, but it's an opportunity for you to do so. So these 4 components are what we're going to launch, and we're going to see what we can do to try to make that happen. What are the goals? So I grew up, my uncle was an aerospace engineer out at Kennedy Space Center, and I grew up watching the launches and watching the inspiration, and I think we're missing a piece of what we had yesterday. I think we as a nation were behind the Apollo program, behind the space program, and now it's like, oh, there's another launch, there's another launch. But we don't see that we are on the cusp of one of the greatest frontier changes in the history of mankind. And we as a nation, if we don't get behind it, we will fall behind to the other countries like China and India and Russia. So we here in Florida literally can rewrite what happens to the next generation of Americans in space. And so that's what truly this drive is. We have mission 1, of course, want to inspire the kids to do those things. The careers, I'm big in career and technical. I would love to see the kids come out and get the jobs. There are 80% of the jobs at Kennedy Space Center are not engineering jobs. They're all plumbers, welders, everything else, and they can't even find enough people. The welders out there are making $65,000 to start. First-year journeyman. It's insanity, right? We should be able to give that opportunity. So how do we do this? What's the plan of action? On June 16th from 11 to 5 right now, and that might change a little bit depending on your team, we're going to host a collaborative 4 breakout session area where your career and technical people can come, your STEM education and integration people can come, grant collaboration people. We would love to have Sarasota lead this. And every indication has been that that's what will happen. And we want to break out and talk with Kennedy Space Center, Jacobs, Blue Origins, all these companies on what they can do in order to help with the grants, help with which one of these tours we're going to do and when, how we're going to put it all together. So we're going to collaborate on that day. And basically, we're going to put all this stuff together on the 16th, and we'll launch roughly between September and beginning of September and the end of, or the beginning of October. So any questions? Sorry. Yeah. Really excited. I had to go through this really long presentation, but let me tell you something. We're about to do something nobody else has ever done before. I promise you. I was a teacher for 9 years. I see what we can do, and I'm ready. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Any questions?
Shirley Brown, Mrs. Brown.
Well,
Miss Brown, sorry.
Is infectious, and I see they are into this. I remember we went to Wilkinson Elementary, and they had a STEM program, and they were doing things, and I believe they had live cameras that they were too, that we could open it up for so many more students, because what they can do virtually now is just amazing. But to open up all these career opportunities, I think is another thing that we need to be thinking about, because I think we should have these kids with the excitement that you're feeling and that they can feel, so that, yeah.
And Ms. Brown, two things I want to say, and I know that no kids watch a school board meeting, so this is good. But what I was going to say is, what's interesting is part of this, we started having this buzz around Kennedy Space Center because we all know at Kennedy Space Center we have this great gym, and we want everybody to be a part of it, but we've never been able to figure that piece out, so that's what we did here. So the ham radio guys came to me, and if you guys have ever known anybody that has a ham radio,
Yes.
they're usually the guy that has a ham. He came to me and I said, he goes, "Oh, we got to get a ham radio in some of these schools." And I'm like, "What kind of weird stuff are you talking about? Them things are those ham radios, those like old military places that you go to?" No, I didn't know this, but when it goes above where you're at, the ham radio can talk directly to the astronauts. So they sit in there, these ham radio guys, and they're talking to the space station astronauts. So how cool would it be to allow Sarasota to have a couple of these ham radios, set it up through NASA so that they could talk to the astronauts when they go right over top? Because you can't really see them during the day, but they're up there, right? And it starts connecting us to that next generation. So it's funny that you said that. I just want to tell you. So no kids finding out, because there'll be 1,000 kids with ham radios trying to talk to them, and they'll be like up there going, "What the heck's going on?" Right? And then they'll be yelling at me, "Susan, what are you doing down there?" So anyways, thank you, Ms. Brown. And you are all invited on the 16th too. Like, I'll take you guys and we'll go with Winston. We'll go see the shuttle. We'll go see everything. More than happy to have you guys. We love you guys coming to Brevard County, spending all your money, and stay as long as you want. So,
Mrs. Ziegler?
All right, sorry. Mr. Susan, thank you. Your energy is infectious, and I think it's awesome. I think we have an amazing, I'm looking over at Dr. DePillo back there, because we have an incredible CTE program and amazing talent inside that and STEM program. So I love the idea of the integration. I do agree that that you mentioned something that we are on the precipice of something that's extraordinary, and to be a part of it. So thank you for putting this together. Very legendary. I mean, really leading something that for generations to come. So I have lots of questions, but I know how to circle back to you.
yeah, I called you on the way here, and I was like, "Hey," and it just went to voicemail. So you got me on there.
Sorry.
But I did want to tell you, one of the opportunities is Wakulla asked, and we haven't approved it yet, but they're building a $20 million extension on one of their high schools, right? And they asked if they could literally call it a NASA extension and pipe in directly. And NASA Hunch has a whole program for that. So we're going to try to put that together. So they're in the career and technical field. It's not just about sending kids over there. There's also collaboration where we can actually create satellite programs where this is going on. Amazing.
Really
Amazing.
quick follow-up, that went on the June 16th, and I know we have amazing abilities with virtual, but when nothing really quite compares to in person.
Yeah.
How, I know. So how long, like how many, is it a one day? Is it a multiple day?
Yeah. So everybody would be unpacking everything for one day, and I'd love to be in there, but I would just talk the whole time. So if you guys come, we can be inside there. But then I think the other thing is I can take you guys over to see the shuttle, and then I can have Winston Scott sitting there talking about how it was when he was on the plane with you. If anybody's been to Kennedy Space Center lately, Delaware North took it over and made it really cool. Before, when we were young, it was like, "Oh my gosh, this is the most boring place in the world." Now it's really, really cool, and the kids are interactive everywhere. So I'd love to take you on that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
You can drive over in the morning. We can hang out for a couple hours. You can make it back by the end of the day. That's what your team did. So
Matt believes in driving, volumes of miles for 2 or 3 hours. I mean, this is just his mode of operation. Matt and I became fast friends through Florida School Board Association.
Yes,
So
we
this
did.
is another partnership or friendship that developed through FSBA. And of course, Sarah is the greatest person to drive you anywhere, because she really gets there very quickly. And I really enjoyed that. I mean, I say that greatly, but we're really looking forward to this, because we have to be involved in new technologies. We have to be, aligned to exciting our students. I mean, there's more to science than a science fair. And there's more to, and science does have an intersectionality between sustainability and agriculture and a lot of other things that Dr. DePillo and his staff are trying to do. And so we're really excited about that. And thank you for coming over here. Dr. Burkett, could you introduce us to other members of your staff? We have a curriculum specialist for middle, high school, and elementary school, and we have some of those ladies in our audience.
Yes, ma'am. With us today is Miss Sherry Dame for elementary, and next to her is Miss Bev Stansel for middle school.
Thank you.
I have to tell you, Miss Goodwin, anybody, I keep forgetting things because it wasn't on the screen, but anybody who comes over for those days, if you want to bring your kids, your children, or anybody from the school, we can get them for free into the Memorial Foundation. So we've already.
Matt only has 5 of those.
I have 5 children, and seeing those girls up there, I have 4 girls, 1 boy. He hates it. He wants us to have another one, but seeing those girls up there was an inspiration. But yeah, sorry.
Well, I want to thank you for being here.
Yep.
And for giving us this opportunity, because I think it's a really wonderful opportunity. So with that.
Can I just say one thing? I'm
Yes.
just so glad that I'm on the school board in Brevard, and it's the first meeting I've been at that there's not like people yelling at me the whole time. So thank you so much, you guys. I really appreciate the opportunity to not be yelled at. So this is good stuff. Thank you. I really appreciate it, and I'll talk to you guys soon.
Safe travels.
I'm coming to get you guys.
Safe travels, my friend. Thank you. And that ends our special presentations. And next up, we have our superintendent's report. Dr. Asplin.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much. And thank you, Mr. Susan. Really appreciate that information about NASA. I know we're taking many notes here about that. So I want to also thank the city of Northport for having us today. Thank you very much. I really do appreciate it. And Jerome Fletcher, I don't know if everybody knows Jerome, but he is new. He's the new city manager here in Northport. And moved from, I believe it was Virginia, Washington, D.C. area, correct? Yes, yes. And a wonderful person, great city manager. I want to thank you for hosting us today, and also thank you for organizing that event the other night here in Northport regarding suicide prevention and inviting our student services department along with you. So we really appreciate that. We thought that was a great event the other night. So thank you so much. I think it only goes to help, obviously your city here, but all parents in general and students. So thank you very much. Also wanted to mention that McGraw-Hill was approved by the Department of Education for the mathematics textbooks. So K-5 mathematics textbooks, we are going to purchase those now. So we are very happy about that. Assessments, I wanted to touch on that for just a second. Right now we're in the middle of FSA assessments. Our students are taking those during the month of May. And those scores, as you know, also at the end of July, beginning of August, those scores will come back in from the Department of Education. But next year, we begin the new assessment program, and that's the FAST program. And, it's supposed to be 3 progress monitoring events, which is really 3 tests. First 2 progress monitors, one would be in September, beginning of September, the other one in December. And those are really to help our teachers inform instruction, help them with their lesson planning and so forth as they analyze the data and help our students. And then the last one, I think it'll be in May again as well, maybe April and May as far as that test is concerned. And that one will not count next year. Next year is a baseline year, so we won't have, we'll have numbers, we'll have data to look at, but it won't, I don't believe anybody's going to get a grade next year at this time. So I just wanted to mention that to you because at the end of this month, we will be attending our FOIL conference, Florida Organization of Instructional Leadership Conference. We're supposed to receive some more information about those assessments then. Right now, I think DOE is still organizing that. And they're going to let us know, how we will be implementing that assessment for next year. But I just wanted to give everybody an idea of what we are looking at. But again, FSA is in full force right now in May, and we'll have those scores at the end of July, beginning of August. And then also I had a few questions from folks about the book challenge policy. I just want to mention it's policy 4.30, if anyone is interested in that. And then also if you have a book challenge, there's a book challenge form. That's part of the process, part of the procedure that you need to fill out, and you can get that online. Just a few other items, just quickly. First of all, is Joseph French here? Joseph French. Okay, Joseph is a senior, so he's probably getting ready for graduation tonight. But I think I mentioned him before, but he is in chemistry, okay, in ACE chemistry. His score was #1 in the country, in the United States. Yes, he's amazing. And with that, he's also Math Aces winner for Sarasota and Manatee. He also earned a perfect score on the ACT. Yes. And he's a national merit finalist. So, please join me in celebrating him. I know he's here at Northport. We wanted to bring him up today. But like I said, I know he's getting ready for graduation. Oh, there he is. He's on the screen. There's Joseph Finch. Thank you for that. Perfect. All right. Also, Secretary of State Laurel M. Lee recently announced the winners of the 2022 Florida History Day contest. There were 782 middle and high school students who presented awards there. And our Sarasota County Teacher of the Year, Dr. Jaso of Sarasota Middle School, had two of her students who were named as statewide winners. One was Victoria Garduno, and she received third place in the Junior Historical Paper category for The Crisis in the Caribbean. And then the second student was Olivia Gambert, and she received first place in the Junior Individual Exhibit, that category for 13 Days and Nights on the Brink of Nuclear War. So I wanted to congratulate those two Sarasota Middle School students as well. Also, we have the 2022 U.S. Presidential Scholars, and if you would, out of 161 recipients this year, join me in congratulating Edward Shen from Pineview School. He is one of this year's U.S. Presidential Scholars in the United States. Just a couple of other items. Also a reminder, the window for the annual survey on school operations, very important for families. That has been extended. The survey is open from now until May 20th. It'll close at 4 o'clock on the 20th, and you can find it on our webpage. Also, registration for next year is open, so parents, please register your students for next year. You can also find that on the homepage. Also, as you know, for the last couple of years, students have received lunch and all their meals for free here in the school district. And we're not sure that that's going to happen next year. To probably stop, but it's a good time if you haven't filled out your free and reduced price meal applications. For those of you who would like to do that, that is online as well. So please think about doing that. And then also bus stops. Bus stop pre-registration forms for the upcoming school year are online. Please consider filling those out. The sooner our transportation department receives those, they can start to build our routes and schedules for next year. Be very helpful. And then lastly, the Sarasota County Surtax. You know, in November, on the 8th of November, Sarasota County residents will decide whether to extend the 1 cent infrastructure sales tax that has been in place since 1989. And this voter approved 1 cent sales tax is used to invest in local infrastructure improvements in roads, sidewalks, parks, libraries, schools, etc. So I just wanted you to be aware of that. That's November the 8th. I know it's far off, but just wanted you to be aware. And that concludes my piece.
Thank you. There are a lot of wonderful things going on in our school district. And as we bring our year to an end, it's always wonderful to hear that our students have been recognized in such a wonderful way. At this point now, we'll move on to our hearing of citizens, our agenda items. Good evening, everyone. At this point in the meeting, we're going to hear from citizens wishing to speak who have completely filled out and submitted a citizen's card. If your full name is not written on the card or you have failed to complete and sign the card, your name will not be called. Please speak to the board, not the audience. Furthermore, speakers addressing the school board shall not make remarks which are irrelevant to the business of the school board or which are abusive, threatening, defamatory, obscene, profane, or otherwise of a disorderly nature. As such, it's not a forum for attacking individual employees or school board members. Any such complaint should be submitted in writing to the superintendent. It is unlawful to disrupt or interfere with the school board meeting, and any such action may result in a misdemeanor or offense of the second degree. At the discretion of the presiding officer pursuant to Florida Statute 1001.372(3), which for purposes of public comment today is me, any individual who interferes with the expeditious or orderly process of this meeting will be removed. This is a business meeting of the school board, and the public expects that we conduct it in an orderly, efficient, effective, and dignified manner. We humbly ask that you act as you were taught as a child. Be respectful of others and treat them as you would want to be treated. Finally, as public servants elected by the people of this county, we will listen with open minds and open hearts to your comments. We respect your First Amendment rights to freedom of speech, and as a citizen of this great country, you must understand that your rights are not absolute. So you are free to speak your mind, but you cannot defame an individual or yell fire in a crowded theater. With rights comes responsibilities. And so we begin. Mr. Edwards.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We'll just call one at a time since we're visiting here in Northport. Michelle Posey.
Thank you and welcome to Northport. Michelle Posey, District 3. I wanted to talk about agenda item 26. I know it's about materials. Our vendors that we use to get some of our materials from. Follett is one of the ones I want to talk about because that is our vendor primarily for library books. I'm glad you mentioned the disputes between some of the material that's been in our libraries. It's really interesting that Florida law does actually cover this topic. Florida statute 847.012 really refers to it as obscenity. And that is anything, harmful materials, either for sale or distribution to minors, that discusses sexual conduct. It can be a narrative account, which I think one of the books was. It even goes a little further in 6B to say if something is deemed harmful to minors, it could actually be punishable as a third-degree felony. And I allude back to last meeting. I know some of us had said that we had a hard time even hearing the descriptions in the book. And that's actually what the law says. If an adult thinks that it's inappropriate and tough to hear, that is one of the factors they use for determining if it's suitable for children. So we could fight this out in courts, really trying to get this removed, but I don't know if you want us to do that right before a big school board election on August 23rd. And let our wonderful families know that for some reason we can't get our act together enough to pull these books off of the shelves. This has got nothing to do with education. It has to do with obscenity in our school libraries. And actually, by not doing it, you could be deemed as committing a third-degree felony. You've been told, it's been put in writing, your silence and neutrality is actually significantly complicity and guilt. If your conscience doesn't lead you to do the right thing and remove these books, then maybe a lawsuit will. Thank you.
Melissa Bakandi.
No clapping, please.
School board members, Dr. Asplin. Agenda item 14, the Patterson Foundation wants to put one of its employees on staff in our schools to collect our child's data. They say that the data collection is for reading programs, but we know better. They're for collecting our children's data, profiling them, and feeding it back for profit. There is no such thing as a free lunch. It's time for Sarasota County Schools to stop letting the foundations have control over our school system and instead direct the foundations and their resources to where they really need them. Agenda item 44. Almost $1 million in legal fees, and now Attorney DeLeo, who is not even here tonight or board certified in education law, wants paid an additional $136,000 for what he calls extraordinary circumstances. Let's review the facts. Governor DeSantis issued an order that no schools could mandate masks. Tom Edwards asked the school board attorney, Patrick Dugan, how to go about breaking the law. Attorney Dugan advises against breaking the law. Jane, Tom, and Shirley did not like the answer, so they fired Patrick Dugan and replaced him with Attorney Dan DeLeo, who helps write the policy to mask our children and defy the governor. Concerned parents filed a lawsuit, and the state fined our school district $12 million for violating the governor. Is it any wonder why our legal fees are so high? Of course, Mr. DeLeo will tell you these high fees have nothing to do with our mask mandate. Well, Mr. DeLeo, you may fool a jury in a courtroom, but you aren't fooling these taxpayers. But it gets worse. Despite Mr. DeLeo telling us that he has plenty of people in line for his services, he still found time to appear with Miss Goodwin on a radio show to bash conservative parents. How much did that radio appearance cost? Mr. DeLeo still found time to email a taxpayer and threaten her with arrest at the school board meeting. How much did he bill the taxpayers for that? I'm calling on the Bar Association to review Mr. DeLeo's involvement in drafting a policy in direct violation of the governor. I'm also calling for parents to join a class action lawsuit against Mr. DeLeo, Jane Goodwin, Tom Edwards, and Shirley Brown for causing irreparable harm to our children and to recover the $12 million that you cost the taxpayer. Thank you.
Barbara Vaughn.
I want to speak on agenda item 44, but as I always do, I have to open with prayer. Father God, we give you thanks and praise. Today especially, we thank you for these wonderful musicians that are doing so exceptionally well, and our athletes, Lord, who are exceedingly wonderful and give a good reputation to our local schools in Sarasota. I thank you, too, for the programs at NASA that are so wonderful for our children. Lord, we hope that this school board and the new school board to be seated next year will be active and involved in these NASA programs. Thank you, Lord, for this place, for this meeting, and for this group of interested citizens and parents. Now I want to address agenda item 44. I pay taxes as a homeowner here, part of which go to the school board to support the schools. I don't pay taxes so that the school board can break the law and then exceed the cap for our legal team because they lost $12 million by breaking the law. Thank you, Lord, for people who show up and care about such things. If you are a taxpayer in Sarasota County and you don't care about the school board wasting your money, well, I guess you're akin to Elon Musk. I don't know, but I'm not. I'm a single mother paying a mortgage and too much in taxes. And what really aggravates me is the things you waste money on. Like a 3 times
Don
the
Wilson.
amount for a person you fired 2 years ago.
On item number 26, which is curriculum that you guys are going to purchase. I don't have a lot of confidence in the curriculum because no one ever says, okay, we reviewed it, we looked at it, because I haven't seen that anywhere. Who reviews these things? Can we put the information in with everything else? I think that needs to be shared with the parents in this district. Let me give you a good idea of why I don't have any confidence in it. Because, okay, so we're going to go back to reading recovery, which is a failed program. 2016-17, it said 15 more teachers joined the effort in 2016-17. 86% of the 139 students. Are you kidding me? Like each school only saw 9 kids for the $11 million that we paid over this period. 9 kids. And what's 86% of 139? I would like to see, I'm not asking to supplement it. I'm saying take that $11 million. Let's invest it directly into more teachers, which is face-to-face learning. That's what these kids need. Let's get some more curriculum, teacher training. We can keep our money. Now, if the foundations want to help, because I see on here that the foundations are helping, let's get them to invest right into teachers and students, not into a company over here. Take that money from the company and put it right into people in this community. That's what I'd like to see. Then it said, then there's some more over here that 75% of students are at grade level. No. We have already seen the numbers. And then the teachers that you had come the other day from Inglewood, Garden, Tuttle, You know, there's more doctors in the school board than there is at Sarasota Memorial Hospital. I mean, like really. Inglewood Elementary, excellent. The students love it. Their scores have gone down for 3.
Jeffrey Scott.
150%.
Good afternoon. My comment is in reference to agenda item number 44. Sarasota County School Board members who refuse to scrutinize recommended outlays for legal fees in the amount of $136,639.50 need to question more. Who is the real benefactor regarding this particular financial outlay? Without the alleged resurgence of COVID, this legal fee would not have seen the light of day. The school district's legal counsel has repeatedly billed the district for legal fees that continue to gouge the tax-paying residents of Sarasota County. How can the Sarasota County School Board not address the unrelenting legal fees that will soon surpass $1 million? I contend your legal counsel has put their interest ahead of the best interest of their client, our public schools. The Sarasota County School Board must stop bending the knee to legal counsel's runaway legal fees and refrain from rubber stamping every invoice without questioning whether or not these reported legal fees were actually necessary in the first place. Transparency along with checks and balances by we the people is something that should not be taken lightly by any member of this elected school board. Thank you.
Zamil Wynn. No Zamil Wynn. That concludes the public comments on agenda items. Thank you for your comments.
Thank you, Mr. Edwards. Now we'll return to the business of the board meeting. Do we have any additions or corrections to our agenda, to our consent agenda, Dr. Asplin?
Yes, Madam Chair. Item number 7, the May 3rd and May 10th work session minutes were added. Also, 2 addendums were added to item number 8, the instructional classified personnel report. And item number 45 was deleted. That was a request from legal counsel to schedule a private meeting with the attorney Rob Robinson concerning settlement negotiations, which is now not needed.
So looking at the approval of the consent agenda, do I have a motion, please?
I'm
sorry.
the agenda as.
Hold on a second. Ms. Ziegler.
Thank you. I'd like to move item number 26 to new business.
Again, may I have a motion, please?
I move to approve the consent agenda as amended.
Second. Does everybody know how to vote? Okay, let's do it. If there's no discussion, please vote. You're supposed to vote yes, no, or abstain. Oh, there we go. And the motion carries unanimously. I'm out of something. It's coming. Wonderful. Okay, thank you very much. Now we'll move on to new business. Item number 42. May I have a motion, please?
I move item 42, the approval of new job description for high school athletic director as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? We are. Hearing no discussion. Oh, we do. Mrs. Brown? You have some discussion?
No, I thought.
Okay, then cancel yourself, please. Hearing no discussion, please vote. And the motion carries 5-0 unanimously. Next, new business item number 43. May I have a motion, please?
I move that the 2022-2023 bell schedule be approved as presented.
Second.
Will we be hearing from someone on this?
Well, any discussion?
I'd like to hear explanations of why these were done and why more changes weren't done.
All right.
Mr.
Dr.
Dumas.
Asplin.
Mr. Dumas.
Mr. Dumas.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. I apologize. I didn't hear your question. What was it?
Well, I think maybe the public needs an explanation of what you're doing and why you're doing it. And I know you brought one forward a while ago, and then this one, and I tried to print it out. My phone that didn't, and I tried to find. So I'm going to need you to explain.
Sure.
The changes from what you presented at workshop and what you've got now, and why we're still having to change these times.
Absolutely. So if the board recalls, a few months ago, we presented at a workshop regarding adjustment of bell times at a few of our schools, some of our district schools and a few of our charter schools. This has resulted in, really over the last couple of years, I would characterize as a perfect storm in transportation services. We have not only had COVID, but in transportation, just literally across the United States, is just a shortage of bus drivers. And so certainly in this last year, that's kind of hit us to the point that routing has done a great job of using all our tools in a toolkit as we can't bring drivers on. So what do? We try to break routes up, consolidate routes, do everything we can to run as efficient as possible with the drivers we do have. So all of those things have happened, and the routing team has done a wonderful job of trying to make those changes and adjustments where we could. We just got to a point in transportation services that no more tools in the toolkit. So when that starts to happen, you still can't hire drivers despite the recruitment efforts. And I got to put hats off to not only HR department, but communications for just doing everything we possibly could to recruit drivers into the district, certainly this last year. And those efforts still continue. But when routing changes and everything you can do to consolidate routes within the transportation department is just not enough, you have to look to other alternatives. There are really two at that particular point. One is bell time changes, because the way schools are scheduled is critical in how efficient transportation runs. The most efficient way to run a transportation department is to run your same buses 3 schools at a time, right? So you're going to run typically a high school run, and that same bus is going to run an elementary run, and then that same bus is going to run a middle school run. And so we try to do that with as many buses as possible, but that requires enough turnaround time between bell schedules so you can turn that bus around. So when you can't do anything with current routing schedules anymore to run more efficiently, you got to start to take a look at those bell schedules. And so the tweaks, I would call them, in front of you for consideration today are where we can move bell times a little bit and be able to use buses more effectively to try and use them as many times as we possibly can. So that's kind of what's in front of you today. The other piece that can be looked at, which is another drastic change, is where you don't have districted schools. So for example, a Pineview or an Oak Park where you run district-wide runs, those are also where you kind of minimize how many times you can use buses. So when you get to this point in transportation, there's really only 2 things to do. You look at bell times and see if you can tweak there, and then you look at programs and level of service and what you can pull back on to try and make runs more effective, more efficient throughout the district. So really, bell times is kind of the next tier of what we think we can do. It is obviously not something we want to be able to that we want to do often, because again, if it's a 5-minute tweak in bell time, we understand it upsets parents, it upsets staff. It is a major change in what people are used to at particular school sites. So we really went at this from a conservative standpoint to look at where, if we tweak bell times, could we use buses more effectively across the district? And so at the workshop, we presented several schools that if we tweak some bell times, it would help us be more effective. And anticipating driver shortages again next year would help us get use more buses and get buses to schools on time. Coming out of the workshop, the board gave us some feedback and said, okay, we see what you're trying to do here, we understand this, but where can you not move time so much? So for example, there are a few charter schools that are moving a couple hours in terms of bell time, a drastic change. And make sure you're looking at the schools that absolutely have to change and not just doing something as a nice to have. So we did that. Charlotte Price, the acting director of transportation, and I met with each of these schools, either principal or sometimes AP and staff at the school site to take a look at what we're doing. And not explain what we're doing, but why we're doing it. So for example, when you see a tweak at Ashton for 15 minutes, it's not so much about getting the buses to Ashton on time, it's about being able to use those buses at other schools before and after Ashton to make the entire transportation package more effective, right? So when you can't bring drivers on, those are the types of tweaks that help with those things. So most of the school changes that you're seeing, district at schools, are about 15 minutes of change. Again, it still creates problems at the school. When you talk about 15 minutes of change, you're still talking about traffic problems, you're talking before care, after care. So these do affect other things going on at the school. And so we've acknowledged that and told each of the principals that if we can work with them on those types of things, try and help facilitate that conversation with parents, we're more than willing to do that. At a few of the charter schools, there's one that's moving about a half hour. But in that case, that has been discussed with the charter school and they're okay with those changes. And so everything on here today is, I would say, not agreeable by everybody, but at least the conversations have been had and we've explained why we think we need to do them and how we will support that principal, that staff moving forward. So some of the times have changed since the workshop, and what we've tried to do in every one of those changes is not expand times, but bring times a little bit tighter so it's not so much of a change for the school, and then provide support where we can. So for example, Pineview, one of the concerns at Pineview is with the late dismissal time, how are kids going to get to sports programs and clubs and things of that nature? So not only working with the principal, but Mr. Cantis, we're certainly willing to support that conversation. So if we've got a student in a particular issue that can't get to a particular program, how can we facilitate that conversation so that program, that sport, that club knows that that student wants to be there, and we're going to try and find a way to get them there. We've offered where we can maybe move stops around in transportation to get that student closer to that club or to that activity in the afternoon. So be as responsive as we can with not only staff at the school site, but with parents to try and make these changes work. So that's kind of a quick summary of where we are and why we're requesting to make these changes for next school year. I had a question from one of the board members about, is this set in stone? And if you're able to hire more drivers, can we take a look at going back? I would say absolutely. What we would need to do is, I wouldn't want to make a quick change, but if we could get back to full staffing in transportation where we're comfortable, we got the number of extra drivers to cover runs, then maybe next year we can look at, okay, what bell times make a little more sense? Can we do something a little different? So we're more than happy to do that. But at this point in time, as we look to what's coming in with all the advertising we've done, all the recruitment we've done, the changes in routing that we've been able to accomplish, it still looks like next year is going to be a tight year. Now we got our fingers crossed that we'll do some awesome recruiting over the summer. But we want to do everything we can to be prepared for going in status quo. And so these bell times, although inconvenient, these minor changes will help us use buses more effectively and help us with the bus driver shortage, which we hope is over sooner rather than later. So that's kind of a quick summary of what we're requesting today from the board.
Well, I want to say thank you for what you've done, because I know you started working on this at the beginning of the year. And when we had our workshop, I mean, you were way, way far away. You were like an hour and a half at some of these schools, and you really adjusted that nicely. So you really minimized all of those shocks for most schools. And I know, because I've heard from some of them, they really appreciated that. I think that we have to really look forensically at our busing schedule next year. I think we have to look at where students go to school and how much time they're on buses. I think there's a lot of things that we have to look at. Our involvement with Charlotte County and how much we assist Charlotte with students as well. I think we have to look at everything. But I hope with those ads that you're running and with more money that we're giving bus drivers, I hope over the summer that we will have an increase in help. I haven't seen a lot of other folks that are getting those people in, unfortunately. And I guess there's some real issue now with our SCAT buses and how much they're paid versus how much we're paid, and some other things. So, but I do thank you for your hard work, and transportation's hard work, because I know that you have put a lot of effort into this, to getting it right. And I think the key right now is that those other entities, those athletic programs, those after-school programs, Boys and Girls Club, Girls Inc., some of these other entities, if they will work with us a bit.
Absolutely. And again, back to, our offer that we will step in and help principal, help
Yes.
staff at school site, help parents where we can help facilitate those conversations. We absolutely will do that. And I will say that the conversation with principals, both at charter and in our own internal schools, really a lot of value in those conversations about what we can do, what we can't do, and what it's going to do at the school site. But then a lot of value in having conversations about help us recruit drivers, right? And so hopefully in these conversations, what we've got now is a lot of partners out there saying, hey, reaching out to their community contacts, transportation really needs some drivers, would you consider it? So hopefully that'll bear fruit over the summer. We've really got our fingers crossed, but we'll do our best to, no matter what happens, transportation is going to do their best to get kids on time to school, as we have for years. So,
And people don't like change. They just don't like change. Anything that changes their schedule of their children, they don't like. That's probably another reason why K-8 schools will become more popular, because hopefully a child will enter kindergarten in that school and stay the 8th grade, so they won't have a school change for middle school. So that's positive. Mrs. Brown.
Well, I appreciate all you've done, but I'm disappointed that we didn't take a better look at what's happening up in North County. I've had parents complaining from several years how it's difficult for them to attend school functions and to pick up their kids when they're being bused across town. And we have several insets. And this affects, I think, some of our most vulnerable people, who live in, I don't know if we call them the projects or assisted living facilities up in the, well, because assisted living is older. This is financial problems. But, to convene a discussion with those people to talk about what it is they want. I mean, do they still want us to be busing their kids across town? Do we want to open up Bayhaven more to the kids in the neighborhood? Those are some of the things that I would hope that, we would still talk about. And, but, I know you've got a problem. And I think even when we're looking at, should we prioritize our district schools over charter schools? Because I know new charter schools aren't getting busing. Those are things that I think we need to continue to look at, because I'm not sure that it might not get worse for us next year. We're going to try to get new bus drivers, but there was an article in today's paper, due to, Grubhub and Amazon and all those others, Palm Beach County, the county, not the school district, can't get buses at drivers at $65,000 starting salary. And that isn't even close to what we're having. So, I mean, we are going to be competing with businesses out there trying to find drivers. So I understand our predicament. It may get worse, not better, by the time we start school next year. And, I think so we do need to reach out and try to, get new drivers if we can, but perhaps even doing some training to get the drivers or these people that might be interested to help them get their licensing.
Absolutely, and just so as a public service announcement, your licensing is free. We do all that training for free. And so if you're interested in driving a school bus or any job with the school district, we're a great employer. We want to be the employer of choice in Sarasota County. So absolutely, I would encourage anybody who's thinking about it, reach out to transportation, reach out to us at the landings, reach out to me. Point well taken, Ms. Brown, and we just hope that the driver shortage doesn't get worse. Certainly if it does, we'll be having additional conversations about some of those other tough decisions that we're going to have to make as we move forward. But we're going to look on the bright side of things, and we're going to hopefully move into next year with more drivers. So thank you.
Mrs. Ziegler.
Thank you, Mr. Dumas. And I'll tell you, thank you to all the families who reached out. I know Mr. Dumas and I spoke earlier, and this is tough, I'll tell you, because as someone who has 3 kids and the logistics of, and today was one of those days for sure, which I may have to leave a little early for that reason as well, to go attend a ceremony for my children. But I get that even 5 minutes can absolutely change everything. I mean, you're excited if you make it on time, but then when you have a tweak of 5 minutes, that just can completely turn your schedule. And so then add 15 minutes to it. And so I want to make that very clear. And I think everyone up here recognizes that being substantial, and even our staff recognizing that is not taken lightly at all. Then I look at the other side of the concerns about, because there is a reality of our shortage, and it's not just Sarasota County, I mean, this is nationwide, which will bring me to another point that I think Mrs. Brown's hitting on really, and it's well stated. But then when you think about our responsibility and from a safety standpoint, ensuring students are in class on time, because those all have detrimental impacts too. And so really it's the lesser of two evils. So I know that there's really no ideal situation here, and I wish I had a solution where, and I know I'm sure Mr. Dumas does too, but I do want to make sure that the families that reached out understand that I personally don't take it lightly. I think it's a hard decision, and I understanding how that's disruptive to your schools. I also know, in my understanding, is that your principals have worked really hard to try to advocate for a lot of those families, but also trying to work and understanding the challenge that the district is in from a macro standpoint. I think moving ahead, where I am concerned is this isn't a new trend, and what I don't want to see us be in is reactionary. And I understand we're coming off the heels of a wild year beyond, 2 years, but this is not something that's unique to Sarasota. We're seeing it. Districts are doing very similar, changing bell times to respond to this. And to Mrs. Brown's credit, she has brought up a couple different things as it relates to transportation, separate, but may alleviate, and I'm not completely sure, I understand the logistics is a very specific science, but I would like to see us be thoughtful about not always, because I don't want to see we having to continuously adjust school times, because that's just not ideal for anyone, and I think that's just broadly, we need to be more proactive. And I say this not as a fault at anyone here, but I would be curious. I have to imagine through the various associations or what have you, this is, and even, the county and cities and counties, they're all dealing with this. You're seeing ride share with municipalities. Obviously, that's a very different situation when we're talking about K-12, minor children. But I do think as a board and as a whole, I would like to see us think outside the box or hear what other people are doing, so we're not constantly responding, because nobody wants to disrupt anyone's life or what have you. We want to make sure that quality and level of service is there and the safety is there. But I do worry that as this trend continues, that we will only be finding ourselves having to make this another decision in the future. So I would implore us, whatever, if anyone hears anything, if anyone sees anything in the community or wherever that are creative ideas that we should be considering, I think that's where we really need to be our focus. So thank you.
You really need to say something.
I just want to point out that even though there aren't people in the audience today, we have received numerous emails about this. Yeah. I have not responded to most of them. I've been reading them before I came. I thought it was important to read them all, but we have all received several emails, some supporting the changes that we made to make it less impactful, but others still not understanding. So.
Sure, and again,
I'll be responding tomorrow.
Yeah, no, and sure, and when you run up against a specific example about a specific problem that I certainly can help with, then forward that to me, and we'll reach out to that parent and see if we can help make that work for them. So absolutely, we're willing to do that. And again, understand that, yes, it is a major impact at these particular sites, and we're all in it together. So we'll work with them to try and make it work for their schedules or their clubs or whatever they have to do.
Mr. Edwards.
I really do appreciate the changes that you made to slim those belt changes down. As Ms. Brown indicated, we, as board members, have received a lot of emails about inconvenience, and not just from families, but from students as well. And I have to honestly say, Ms. Goodwin mentioned last week at our meeting about how parents to be kind and to accommodate, and we're trying. And I thought to myself after I heard that comment, we really haven't heard a whole lot of negativity from our families and our parents about kids being late, about buses being tardy or not getting home on time. We really haven't heard complaints. If anything, I think people are accommodating and are understanding. So when I compare the lack of comment coming in that direction and the comments that's coming from families and students in this direction, and I also take a step back and to what Ms. Ziegler said, you know, we all get stuck in traffic unexpectedly. That extra 10 minutes throws off your whole day. I really I'm struggling with the accommodation of this, even though I know that the transportation department has worked and tried every which way from Sunday. Lastly, I want to say if we're really looking, and I think it's kind of unfair to say, look outside the box. I think you've been doing that for 2 years and you've just turned over every rock and every stone. But I think it's starting to come back as a state issue, because I've read the paper all week long about how Amazon has come into our state and the changes that Amazon and the way that they do business, it's capitalism at its best, but we can't compete with $20 an hour bus drivers and drivers. And if that's what it's coming down to, and it's not just Sarasota, it's becoming a state issue, quite frankly, as to how the state gives us money to afford bus drivers. So I hate to honestly tell you no, but I'm kind of I can't support the bell changes. It's too much, I think, understanding that our families have been accommodating and they understand seemingly what we're up against. So I won't be supporting the bell changes at this time.
Mrs. Rose.
My question, Mr. Dumas, relative to these adjustments, are there any opportunities that are arising for schools to have a sweeper bus at the end of the day for students that stay after for tutorials or such? Is there any kind of balancing or compensation that we might have in addition to this change?
So I would say yes, cautiously. So it depends on the time of day that sweeper bus is needed, right? So if it's at a high school and it's during the elementary school time, maybe, just depending on what school we're talking about, can we have a bus there to sweep through? I was just over at Northport High. I was in the bus loop before I came here, just saying hi to drivers. And if you've ever been there, I mean, there are tons of buses in that bus loop with kids loading and everything else. And all those buses left, and there's always one bus that's late. They run a sweeper bus and pick up, and they're there about the same time every day. For after-school programs and things like that, we've always tried to accommodate wherever we can for those after-school programs, trying to run a sweeper bus in. I will tell you, it depends on the day right now, and it depends on the school, the location, all of that comes into play. So sometimes we can say yes, sometimes we have to say no. It was just yesterday afternoon, I believe it was, that we had a bus that there was nobody to cover, and we did an all-call to try and get some driver to cover. They ended up getting somebody to that run, but it was late and it was on the fly, and it was, please, somebody come help us today. So those are the types of days we have with everybody on a bus, our acting director running basically dispatch. It's all hands on deck. So again, I don't want to promise something I can't deliver. So in some cases, yes. In some cases these days, it's a no. So it's a hit or miss, but we're happy to where we can.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Dr. Asplin.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to make sure that there was some clarity on all of this. First of all, thanks to Jody and your department. I mean, the transportation department really does a great job. And I know that the department not only had themselves, but many other departments involved in trying to figure out what we should do during this year. And we have contacted many different agencies trying to either steal their drivers or figure out how we're going to do this. And I can tell you, you're right, Mr. Edwards, it's across the nation. But I do know that just in talking to another superintendent to the north of us, they actually had to change their times, and they did it in the middle of the year, which you never even want to do that. At least we've been able to hold off as much as we can to do it at the end of the year. They had to do it in the middle of the year because there was no other options for them. But the other thing I wanted to mention was, besides the inconvenience, the bigger issue, I think, is the lost instructional time, because what we have is double backs, triple backs, at any given school, and it's the same buses a lot of times, or the same students a lot of times, might miss 15, 20, 25 minutes of their day at the beginning of the day because they didn't get there and teachers have already started the day. So it's a big instructional issue as well. As far as students missing instruction, we do not want that to happen. We need all of our students getting as much of the instruction as possible and to start on time. So that was just another factor involved in this as well.
All right, with no other discussion, please vote. Waiting. I do like the system.
We all voted, you know that.
Yes, I do know that. The motion passed by 3-2 with those voting in dissent, Mrs. Rose and Mr. Edwards. And next item up for a motion is item number 44. May I have a motion, please?
I move that the board approve the increase in legal fees incurred by Luke Kendrick due to the extraordinary nature.
I'm sorry. Did everybody hear that?
Second.
Any discussion? I will be supporting this. I do know that there was a number of extraordinary circumstances that resulted in this. And I feel that we are lucky to be getting a handle around our legal fees. There were a time that we really did not have processes in place for a number of things. We've had a lot of litigation and other things that have happened. Most of this was not most of the fees themselves were not school board related or servicing of the school board related, but were other things as well, such as our litigation, some of which dated back to 2014 and other earlier times that of several years ago. So I think that we're seeing the fees and the costs coming down, and I think that the next year will be a better year now that we have gotten these processes and controls in place, such as contracting and how to do certain processes that we never had a process for before. So any other comments? If not, please vote. Oh, I'm sorry. Mrs. Rose.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will not be supporting this. The governor's directive was to employ for districts to employ a mask mandate as well as the Florida Surgeon General. This board chose to do a mask mandate, eliminating parent options in the result, I might add that 58 counties followed the governor and the Surgeon General of Florida's directive and did employ a mask mandate with parent options. So even though this fee is directed at the mandate and what occurred during that process, it did not even involve litigation. We weren't involved, to my knowledge, in any litigation, but yet the fees were excessive. So I will not be supporting this. Thank you.
Mr. Edwards.
I know people want to relitigate this mask mandate once again, and we did codify the $136,000 to mask mandate. But I noticed that in the passage of the consent agenda today, that we have an $85 million expenditure heading in that direction. That with a new K through 8 build, we have a Bay Haven renovation coming in at $18 million. And what I notice is that the board seemingly isn't concerned about the fact that construction costs are escalating through the roof. And that I've been asking on an ongoing basis to understand how soon are we going to be purchasing this materials so that we're staying close to budget. We've had other escalating costs throughout the school district. Fortunately for us, gasoline wasn't one of them because we purchased it well in advance. But there are many, many, many other expenditures that are coming at the school district fast and furious. And COVID was extraordinary. And I would challenge anyone that everyone had all the answers. And as I said in the last meeting, which I will state again for the record, if I had it to do over again, I would still do it because there were families that lost grandparents and parents, and they were local. And if I did it to keep kids in class so that they weren't quarantined, to manage that instructional time. And it was 3 weeks and a few days that it was mandatory here in Sarasota, and then it went optional. So I don't think that that was too much to ask for. Unfortunately, there was dollars that had to be spent to understand how to deal with the governor and his litigation back to us and vice versa. So having said that, also I want to point out that the Parents' Bill of Rights, I double checked this, was upwards of $35,000 in legal fees that the school district incurred. And we still don't have the policy updated as of yet. So what concerns me even more, and that's why I'm making a long story long about this, is that there are lots of extra dollars that get spent that no one seemingly cares about, but they go after the legal because they can go after the mask policy, and I find that to be unacceptable. Lastly, the way we order legal services is really a problem for me. I've said that in the last meeting, and I will put that somewhere to be put on a board agenda, is that how we organize ourselves and spend that money can be done in a more efficient and better way. So moving forward, I'd like to see it be well under the $800,000, but I'm tired personally of relitigating the mask policy over and over.
Mrs. Ziegler.
Thank you. So I agree with much of what Mrs. Rose said, and I actually agree with much of what Mr. Edwards said. I won't be supporting this, and there's a couple reasons why. But in particular, I think, Mr. Edwards, you raised a very good point. We are at a moment with high inflation. There's a number of elements from a financial standpoint as a district that we do need to be monitoring. I know staff is, but also bringing it forward to us so we can watch it from a budgetary standpoint, because we are once again in unprecedented times. And I think that's our obligation from a fiduciary standpoint. One of my biggest concerns when it comes to legal is when we, and even to your point of how we order that, making sure how are we navigating those prices. Certainly we have a new relationship, and as I've said, I'm very realistic to this. I understand when you have a new, particularly from a more of a consultative aspect, which an attorney is going to be, there are a lot of unknowns, and when you have a new relationship, until you lift up that hood, and what does that look like? And that's where the adjustments with scope of services and whatever has to align based on what our need is, what our budgetary aspect is, and it's a bit of a learning curve, and I'm very realistic to that. I think as I had personally had kind of navigated and asked, and I know I'd shared it with the board throughout, starting in October and every other month or so, just to get update of fees, because I had looked at it even with our former council would evaluate our legal costs, because there were it wasn't related to the attorney per se, but there were other exposures that were presenting themselves and that I was trying to monitor from a litigation standpoint. So all of those are moving parts. When I look at the end part, though, kind of coming around, and to your point, very well stated, is that there are a lot of financial impacts that we're seeing from the economic standpoint in general, even more so to be more scrupulous with the way in which we're utilizing our general counsel and the roles they're playing. And one anecdotal aspect, because we're CC'd on them, and I did rise to my level of concern, and Mr. McKinley, I apologize. I see, like, you're always in this seat when we have a really uncomfortable discussion about general counsel, but it's not directed at you by any means in any way. But I will say there are correspondences with constituents that I don't believe is an appropriate role for the general counsel, especially if we're considering legal fees. But I also just don't think it's representative of what this board could in totality, at least as one board member. And I think that if the roles were reversed, I would hope that general counsel would respect that equally across the board. And so if we're trying to monitor those fees and those costs, in addition to what that appropriate role is, I think that has been one of my biggest concerns. And so when I look at this extenuating circumstances, would we have hit that cap? I'm not even going to go into the mask portion of it. But in totality, when you look at the account, the amount, the way in which the engagement has been, I think it's wildly unprofessional. I honestly will say, personally, as one board member, I question whether the lead that we have with our contract with Shoemaker, meaning the lead general counsel, has the appropriate temperament to actually be our general counsel. When you consider the display in that I just do not believe is the appropriate role for any government public entity's role of a general counsel, and then to top it off that is actually costing us money is very concerning. So for all of those reasons, I will not be supporting it, and I do hope as we move forward we can move things in a more positive direction for the good of the district.
Mrs. Brown.
I just want to make sure that I point out that it wasn't just the mask mandate, but the overall COVID impact on the district. How are we going to work with our employees? Are we going to have employees require them to be vaccinated, wear masks? All of those types of discussions were held, and a lot of that was held even before schools opened. And we can relitigate this mask mandate again, but as I said at the time, I don't believe we broke any laws. The Parents' Bill of Rights says that you can override this on a compelling interest. And I think those 2,000 students that contracted COVID the week we passed it was a compelling interest. And it only lasted 3 weeks. The mask only lasted 3 weeks. The response from the public lasted much longer. So, you know, and the law about mask mandates didn't come along until they actually had a special session on it. The cost, I think we always should watch the cost and legal fees, but we as a board don't have a lot of say in how those go. I think that's something that we need to direct the superintendent to do, because a lot of the costs that are legal costs are not regarding what the board does, but how the other entities within our school district interact with him on issues. Like there's a lot of issues having to do with labor issues and employment and lawsuits that might be brought against us. And, you know, I think we also have we need to look at what might come because of, you know, the Parents' Bill of Rights and some of these other bills that will open up the board and the district to more lawsuits. You know, maybe we need to look at it. Maybe you know, what having an outside counsel is, and maybe we need to look at an inside counsel. But I think it's something, yeah, we should be looking at. But I do believe that to increase the contract this year because of the extraordinary circumstances due to COVID is in line with business practices. And I will be supporting it.
Well, a couple of things. We had 55 school districts that did not do a mask mandate, 12 that did. We were one of 12. We did it for 3.5 weeks, and in that time, we really weren't charged with or penalized with the threat of the $12 million loss, which never came about. There were some losses that in the budget this year about contests, and it was not taken, the 12 million was not taken out of our budget as originally forecast. Business of this size, $1 billion business, normally would have close to $1 million in legal fees. And anyone today that sees the temperament of some of the people at our board meetings and these correspondence that we receive would understand why an attorney and an answer from an attorney is very, very important. So I think a lot of the things that we have been involved with, and our lead counsel, Mr. DeLeo, has been involved with, were necessary. I love having Mike McKinley at our table, and he's a Shoemaker Loop attorney as well, and great experience in school board leadership and knowledge and understanding. But we had a need probably a couple of years ago before we lost Art Hardy for more of a robust counsel services, I do believe. And we have willy-nilly just kind of let everybody call an attorney and do with as they pleased. And I think the superintendent is looking at doing some new things in terms of processes to make that work more efficiently, more completely. So if there are no other discussions, please vote. And the motion carries 3-2 with those dissents of Mrs. Ziegler and Mrs. Rose. Thank you. Next item, number 45. May I have a motion, please? 45. Oh, I'm sorry. 45 is deleted. Sorry, 46. May I have a motion, please?
I move we approve the request for legal counsel to schedule a private meeting for advice concerning the settlement negotiations and/or strategic sessions related to litigation expenditures pursuant to 286.011.
Second.
Any discussion? Please vote. And the motion carries unanimously. And the next item is the item that we moved from the consent agenda to new business. It's item number 26, Mrs. Ziegler.
You want a motion?
Sure.
Someone want to make a motion?
I move the approval of the expenditure for school materials as presented.
Second. Discussion. Any discussion? Hearing none.
No, wait,
Mrs. Ziegler.
You like this system.
I do too.
I appreciate it, and thank you. Overall, I think, and I know Dr. Aspen and I talked about this even on a former meeting, and I know that there is a lot of discussion and concern, and while we have a number of high-quality instructional material and books, etc., there have been things that have come forward. We even had a workshop and really narrowing down into what that process is, how are we vetting it, how thoroughly are we vetting it, because what I think is so unfortunate, and I know, again, Dr. Aspen and Mr. Runoff and I have spoken about this, and I know I personally have put a bit of at least shared my opinion from the Department of Education and the governor's office when it came down to the adoption process and what have you, because things would find themselves in our district and people would say, well, how does this happen? And in my mind, it's disruptive to our educators at the classroom time, because then that's almost a reactionary aspect. And I think it is our obligation. I mean, the baseline is to know and clearly vet and all of the material in a K-5, that's our K-5, K-12, that's our responsibility. And I think it be prudent that we potentially, I think someone mentioned the word press pause, and that's just stuck in my head, but evaluate our systems in place so that we can support our staff, so that they aren't necessarily blindsided, because interesting, throughout this process over the last couple of months or 6 months or so, talking to different people in the district, even leading up to that one workshop, it seemed like there was different answers, and it wasn't, that was clear, to me, it appeared it wasn't necessarily clear what that vetting process is. And I think as a whole, making sure we're narrow on that before we approve any additional contracts, so that we get that system in place for the benefit of all. I know there's different opinions on what should be there or what shouldn't, and we'll get through that as well, but I think understanding so we can specifically, narrowly tailor down to who sees what that process is, and making sure that, again, we're not constantly in a reactionary moment. Dr. Aspin, I know we've spoken that sometimes things do potentially get through, and students and families have brought things to our attention, as has staff. But again, I do believe it is our obligation to do that vetting from the front end, and that's why I will not be supporting it.
Mrs. Brown. I trust our staff. I mean, most of them have PhDs in education and or at least master's degrees, and they look through this. And I think contrary to what some of the comments may be, we aren't buying reading recovery through this. We've already approved reading recovery in another meeting, and we aren't buying the library books that were mentioned here. They're not part of this agreement. But I think that we have qualified professionals that make these decisions, and I don't want to be second guessing what it is they are trained to do, and I don't want to stand in their way.
Mrs. Rose.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I won't be supporting this as we stand right now. I know that Dr. Aspin and I have had conversations about our systems, and I consider it a win-win for the whole community, the entire community, for them to understand what that system is, how it has accountability, and one of the most important pieces to me, which is something that you do as a principal and classroom teachers do. For me, this isn't a staff issue, it's a systems issue, and that's assuring our community that we have transparency, there's clarity of the decisions that we're making, the purchases we're making, but bottom line, that every one of those purchases is aligned to the state standards, the benchmarks that we are required to teach. I think that single piece of accountability alone would solve and really strengthen a very visible system. Thank you.
Mr. Edwards.
Yes, so the programs by which we are listed here to purchase, apparently we've all had conversations with Dr. Asplin about so, but my conversation specifically in light of transparency is that, to me, the programs, the ones that we're keeping and the ones that we're discarding, to me, go hand in hand in what I've asked for in terms of the non-recurring dollars from ESSER. So, for example, we have a lot of money that we've spent in non-recurring dollars, and much of that is in headcount and programs. And what I'm concerned about is that those dollars won't be available to us at some point. And so way back when we first started to have these conversations, which I think, Dr. Aspin, I think it was more than 6 months ago, when I said, well, reading recovery and all these other reading programs, which ones are good and which ones aren't we keeping, or are we not keeping? And we need to get on a program by which we know which ones we're keeping and which ones are successful and which ones are not, so that we can recapture those dollars to the bottom line. And so from my perspective, and once again, I don't think that there's a transparency issue with our community. I've learned since I've been a board member what the process is by which how we approve math books. I know that we have committees that are parents are involved, teachers are involved. All of that is in place, and I've since learned that since I'm a board member. And I go back once again to 85% passage of the referendum. Our families are really happy with what is going on in the school district. They're really happy with the programs that are being purchased. I think that what we have to follow up on is the recapture of programs that are either antiquated or not working the same way, so that we can recapture those dollars to the bottom line. So I will be supporting our superintendent. That almost all of this, I understand, is strategic plan related. So I will be supporting this.
Dr. Asplin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. One clarification on this particular item. This particular item is to approve these companies who bid. These are all companies, not programs. These are all the companies that supply the programs. And so we need these companies, we need to approve these companies so that we can then look at their programs and purchase the ones that we need to purchase for our students. So I just want to be clear on that, okay? So and these are the companies that provide instructional materials in our district and many districts. It is our job as a curriculum team, Mr. Renoff and his curricular team, to vet any of the programs that we are going to purchase from these companies. And I will say, any given company, when you start looking at companies, they try to advertise and accommodate many different customers. So there's other districts that would buy things that we don't purchase, but they still come from the same companies. These companies sell widely spread materials. And so it's our job to vet the ones that we want. And we do that. And I know Mr. Renoff and I would agree with everything that we heard up here about vetting all of our programs and making sure that we have a process in place. The books in the Media Center, what I have found is that most of those books were purchased before 2013. And so what was the process back then? I have no idea. But what is the process as we move forward? And so we've had that conversation, and we're building a process for our library books and our libraries within our classrooms, for instance, to make sure our teachers know exactly what's in their classrooms. Very, very important. But I want everybody to understand this particular item are the companies that provide all the different books, good ones, bad ones, all the different books. And we need to accept this bid so that we can then look at the programs they have to buy the particular programs we need to buy after we vet them.
Karen Rose.
Dr. Asplin answered my questions relative to the systems and processes for classroom libraries and school libraries. Thank you, Dr. Asplin.
Well, I would just say I support this, and the reasons are many, but we are not here to micromanage, and we are not experts in curriculum or in any of these issues. I looked up what the evaluator credentials were for the state for choosing our mathematics textbooks, and a person had to have a master's degree or higher, an educator certification, substantial experience with evidence of mathematics content expertise, and student achievement or recognition as a math content expert, such as receiving awards or being published in math. I know that none of us up here have any of those, and I know there were some few people that didn't have this that were on that team that made the selections in textbooks, but I thought that was interesting to capture, to talk about this kind of an issue here at school. It takes a lot to do what Chris Renoff and Steve Cantes and the people sitting on the back row do in terms of curriculum, in terms of making those decisions. And I support them, and I support Dr. Asplin. We know that he is a great curriculum team leader and was in St. Johns County, and we know when we brought him here that he was going to do great things and exceptional things here too. So for that reason, I support this, and I think it's important. So with no other words to speak of, I think we should vote. I like the system. And the motion carries, surprise, 3-2. Those dissenting members, Bridget Ziegler and Karen Rose. And I think that brings us to the end of new business, correct? Correct. Are there anyone who wants to make an announcement? Tom Edwards.
I was remiss when we were in Venice to thank our assistant Kathy Tompkins and our audio-visual team. So I want to make sure that I thank them here. To take our show on the road is no easy feat. It looks easy, but audio-visual, Jamal, John, and that whole team to make sure that all of this works and that we all know how to make it work. And Kathy for making sure that we have all the necessary things at our fingertips to conduct board meetings. So thank you very much.
Mrs. Brown.
Well, I just want to say we'll be starting our graduations tonight at Northport, and we've got several more to go and over the next week and a half. And I just congratulate all these students and the parents and the teachers for all the successes we'll be seeing in the next few weeks.
Well, I want to thank Northport for having us. This is a great boardroom, and we really appreciate it, and we've really enjoyed being here. Thank you, Jerome. Thank you, Jill. And I would say that, you know, it feels pretty comfortable up here, and I like that. And I have a couple of announcements. The next board meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, June the 7th at 6 p.m. And the next monthly work session is scheduled for Tuesday, June 14th at 9 a.m. And we are adjourned. And now we will start our general comment part of the meeting. Mr. Edwards, would you please call the first person?
Michelle Posey.
Posey, District 3. Just again for clarifying, it's been a long time since I've sat in math class, but 85% of a 26% turnout does not equate majority. That means 75% of the public actually either didn't know about the referendum or is so disoriented they didn't show up to turn out for that vote. So maybe put it on a general ballot, and that might drive the interest, and then you might really see what people think. The board is finding that extraordinary circumstances in the amount of $136,000 are warranted to Board Counsel Dandileo. Let's be clear. Let's be clear, everybody, on who voted to think that that's warranted. Because I think it's worth the community knowing who agrees to this additional amount and exactly why our vote matters on August 23rd this year. You see, it took 6 months for the majority of this board and their counsel to realize, wait for it, breaking the law means higher attorney fees. Most of this board sat idly while counsel interjected in my records request, creating more billable hours in a field where he's not needed. Counsel that made repeated requests to me, a citizen, to call him, and gave me pushback when I demanded things in writing and my right to speak from this podium. He created the need for more billable hours and thinks a handout is in order. Sarasota, you paid for a majority of this board who voted to mask your kids. You are paying for an attorney who allowed them to break the law and now holds out his hand for more money. You, Sarasota, are paying for bloviated attorney fees, all while he states publicly that we are his least favorite client. Can you and I do that in our private sector business? Can we tell our clients we dislike them and also demand more money? Take a close look at the world that this council and the majority of the board live in, because it doesn't represent mine. We have to vote for common sense this August, because this is what happens when good people do nothing. Sarasota, watch who on the board voted for this, Jane, Shirley, and Tom, and who they endorsed for school board on August 23rd. We do not need recklessness in leadership 2.0. Thank you.
Melissa Bakandi.
Board members. There was a lot of discussion last board meeting about putting more money towards Mr. DeLeo's Community Foundation, putting more money towards reading recovery, failed reading recovery. Ms. Goodwin summoned families and teachers from the district to rally to support it. But what Ms. Goodwin failed to disclose is that while reading recovery produces great statistics in the early years, it's shown that it fails students as they get into middle and high school. We have a sitting board member, Ms. Karen Rose, who was a special ed teacher for over 13 and a half years and an ESE liaison. an expert, if you will, in dealing with reading disabilities and IEPs. She all but advised against putting more money into reading recovery, and she told you about the many emails that she received from parents who were failed by reading recovery. She also reiterated that she and the group Dyslexia Florida were pleading to use data-proven programs along the lines of Orton Gillingham for the millions of dollars in dyslexia grant money. Ms. Shirley Brown wants to dismiss those emails because the people aren't in district anymore. Well, Ms. Brown, the reason they're not in district anymore is because reading recovery failed them, and those are exactly the people that you will need to hear from. Why is Ms. Goodwin so bent on retaining reading recovery that she refuses to listen to the evidence? Ms. Rose is an expert, but apparently Ms. Goodwin is more of an expert. Perhaps Ms. Goodwin has some credentials that we don't know about. Or maybe Ms. Goodwin is following the pathway of former school administrator Laura Kingsley, and after cheering heavily for reading recovery, was offered a job with them upon retirement. As far as classroom instructional materials go, really all purchases should be stopped until this rogue school board can amend its policy that allow for the purchase of pornographic books. We already have 22 pornographic books in libraries, and Dr. Asplin, a leader does not wait to follow board policy to protect our children from those pornographic books. I guess your allegiance to Miss Goodwin and your waterfront condo are more important.
Tanya Paris.
Being that it's Mental Health Month, I'd like to speak to that today. It was March of 2020, and Bella, a beautiful 18-year-old senior, attended a high school in Sarasota County and had just bought her prom dress. It would be the very first time she could dress to the nines, and she was elated beyond belief. Bella was having the time of her life as a senior. She loved school, was extremely hands-on, had excellent grades, and was very active in sports and extracurricular activities. Suddenly, Bella's life as she knew it came to a halt when the pandemic hit. School closed and virtual school in isolation became her new life. Her prom dress hung as a reminder of what would never be, and she began to sink into a deep depression. Graduation was then canceled, and all of her hard work and pride would now end with no celebration to come. She started becoming recluse and pulled away from her friends and her family. School announced a graduation celebration in a drive-through car lane, in which Bella was just too upset to attend. The school delivered a care package to the seniors consisting of a bag of items, which included a roll of toilet paper. Bella remained in a manic state of depression, and the school announced it would offer a senior dance, and Bella had a glimmer of hope. But because of her asthma and difficulty breathing, the mask mandates required to attend will leave her dress on a hanger. Bella became manically depressed and institutionalized in a matter of 4 months, and eventually Bella took her own life. As a governing school board, you create these policies, procedures, rules, and mandates impacting our children in school, and all decisions this board makes should be taken with the utmost seriousness. Whether mask mandates, canceling graduations, just dropping off a bag of toilet paper may not seem to be a huge deal to adults in charge, but can cause a detrimental consequence to some of our children. When parents come to this podium or email to you and stress their concerns, I again plead with you to truly listen to them, as it may be crucial feedback you need to hear. These parents are in fact the ones who know their children the best, and you are in fact the ones who have the power to help them. Thank you.
Carol Lerner.
Good afternoon, Carol Lerner. There are many reasons to reject Charter School USA's application for a for-profit managed charter school at Welland Park, right here in Northport. But there is one overarching reason to deny the application when it comes before you on June 7th. That is because Charter School USA has very little to do with educating children and everything to do with making money, lots of it. Charter School USA is not just an education empire, it is a financial empire. Go in the Florida Division of Corporations and you will find 40 or more corporations with the same Palm Beach address and the same cast of characters as officers or agents. 6 of these are real estate entities with names like Red Apple and Green Apple. They hold the mortgages to which the schools pay rent at inflated rates. But it doesn't stop there. In 2019, Charter School USA made almost $800 million in selling charter school bond debts. That's close to $1 billion. Should our kids be for profit? Now, it would be one thing if Charter School USA made money but provided quality and unique education programming, but they don't. As the Sarasota District Charter Review Committee put it in their analysis of the Welland Park application, quote, "The school's mission and vision is not compelling and not unique. Its curriculum is boilerplate. The curriculum, I would wager, is far inferior to any Sarasota traditional public school. And Charter School USA plans to build less than 1.5 miles from where the district will break ground next year. Time doesn't allow me to complete a thorough analysis of the application, but let me mention two other concerns that top my list. One, there is no local board for the proposed school, only a centralized and geographically distant board. In addition, the school is situated in an affluent area, will have no busing, but Charter School USA claims it will meet Sarasota diversity averages. What? This application must be denied.
Robin Williams.
If you feed your growing child McDonald's for 13 years with its nutritionally unbalanced and limited menu, their health will suffer. If you send your child to an educationally limited bargain basement Charter School USA for 13 formative years, their mental growth will suffer with lifelong consequences. CSUSA owners Jonathan and Sherry Haig know that, which is why the mega millionaires didn't send their 4 kids to any of their 8 CSUSA schools in their area, but instead to the elite Pinecrest with world-class facilities for the visual and performing arts, science, technology, media, swimming pool, you name it. Most CSUSA schools don't have libraries, auditoriums. Some don't have gyms, and outdoor facilities are limited. Their posted curricula state vague generalities with no specific content. In Florida, charter school principals don't have to be certified. It helped having academicus, Senator Manny Diaz, newly named as Florida's education commissioner, craft legislation permitting charter schools to have lower standards. Teachers are underpaid in the supposedly nonprofit schools that are managed by the biggest for-profit EMOs in the nation, Academica and CSUSA. Haig not only owns CSUSA, but all its for-profit offshoots that their charter schools cannot contract with to lease school buildings for technology and tech services, for their prepackaged SEL program and almost every facet of school operations. Welland Park will offer less than Sarasota public schools. The application replicated Clay School, supposedly an A school that's really a C school. Over 40% of teachers had classes outside their area of certification. The clinic was unstaffed and unlocked. Some ESE students didn't have case managers and didn't get required therapies. Sarasota's Charter Review Committee found 76% of standards weren't fully met. Vote to reject Welland Park on June 7th. Thank you.
John Wilson.
I'd like to see us do a better job for school that's out in getting the Hispanic community their free and reduced lunch forms, because we're not going to have any information for them, because I know for a fact that I've been sitting with the Spanish community, and a lot of them don't know how to navigate the website. So I went to the lunchroom and talked to the lunchroom lady at my daughter's elementary school, and they won't have the forms, because I want to get some forms passed out, the Spanish forms to file for free and reduced lunch until sometime in August. So if we can get those out to the parents before the end of the year, that'd be great, instead of having a gap for the Spanish community before then. Dr. Asplin, I heard what you said about the curriculum. I would just like to know some of these things. Like what you said made a lot of sense, but I would like to know it before. I don't have to want to come here to know what your answer is on vetting, we need to have this, or anything else like that. So a little bit more of information would be great. I do want to point out that I'm going to question some people with PhDs and masters, because a lady with a master showed up from Tuttle Elementary saying how good reading recovery was. And, you know, I don't have a master's, but I have common sense. So let's go ahead and go. 2018, Tuttle was 49% of the kids. 2019, 46%. 2021, 38. Wait a minute, I see a pattern here. Okay, and the same thing with the lady from Inglewood Elementary, 83% in 2018, 74% in 2019, 72%. So yeah, that's why I questioned somebody with a master's and a PhD. As far as, and then I heard no cards will be taken before the start of the meeting. New policy. Rules for speaking, that's the same policy every time, but we change policies when we see fit. As far as Dan DeLeo, his reign is over come November.
Ronna Bazzini.
Good afternoon. One advantage of aging, people are forgiving if you repeat yourself. So please forgive me, I'm going to repeat myself. I'm here to address the proposed application for a charter school by USA. Been there, done that. In 2018, the Sarasota School Board wisely denied the application for Academica for a for-profit charter school in a 4-to-1 vote. USA is a similar for-profit charter school. There is one operating now in Bradenton, which seems to be struggling and also has an enrollment far below what was anticipated. An interesting tidbit, Jonathan Haig, the founder and CEO of Charter Schools USA, at one time had a beautiful yacht that was called Fishing for Schools. Our children are not 8, and our children are not for profit. Please deny the application of USA for a for-profit charter school. Thank you. And this is the first time I've been in Northport. This is really nice digs, and thank you for hosting us.
Jeffrey Scott.
When the Sarasota School Board majority interferes with our First Amendment rights outside of due process, the majority fails in its obligations to uphold our nation's Constitution. To my knowledge, this elected school board has no law enforcement experience, or for that matter, any legal authority to put restrictions on a citizen's ability to speak freely. In other words, my right to speak freely enables me to think what I wish and say what I think and write what I say as public commentary. I believe the controlled rebranding of giving public comment at a Sarasota County School Board meeting is a retaliatory measure by the majority in order to silence the content of free speech. In the court of public opinion, a school board must live up to the values inherent in our nation's First Amendment. I contend any actions to suppress free speech at an open school board meeting is above the rule of law and beyond any semblance of accountability. I further contend our Constitution and its Bill of Rights were created to protect us from those in power, not the other way around. We live in challenging times, and the difference between right and wrong is one person's willingness to stand up for what they believe is unjust. The positive virtues of speaking freely outweigh any attempt to restrict them by a school board majority who is definitely on the wrong side of our First Amendment rights.
Jill Luke.
Am I your last one?
No.
No? Okay. For the record, Jill Luke, I am a resident and a commissioner in the city of Northport. Thank you for coming here, holding your meeting in our city. It's been a few years since you've done that to acknowledge our students. We are so proud of their talent, of their intellect. They are wonderful children. We have right at 80,000 people in our city. 16,000 of them are students. We are only 1/3 built out, people. So you triple, quadruple that, you're looking at 50,000 students in the city of Northport. So thank you for coming here, for honoring our students. I'll see, hopefully, most of you at the graduation at 7:30. There's two things I would be remiss if I did not mention. Our high school and our Heron Creek Middle School are right across the street from each other on Price. We need some traffic control. We need a partnership to keep those students safe because the location of them, of those two schools, are right across from each other. If it were not for that, a traffic signal would not be required, but because of the location, it needs to be looked at with our staff. The last thing is I support STC. We are only 1/3 built out. We have the workforce that fills this entire county. And that technical college is vitally important to the economic growth, not only of Northport, but to the entire county. So I would ask that you guys support them in order to be fully financed through our state. Thank you for your time.
Erica Groff. No Erica? Eric Groff? Carl Goodrich. In fact, you were the last, Ms. Lou. That concludes the general comments. Thank you for your comments,
Thank you
everyone.
very much, and thank you, everyone. Have a nice evening. We are finished.
Mm-hmm.